My name is Charlie Smithers, and I'm a retired Army colonel, and was in the Army for almost 30 years, and served in many places and locations. And I finished my tour of duty as a district commander in the Corps of Engineers, and came to work for Coastal Environmental Group. And we just finished a debris removal project under the auspices of the Corps of Engineers at Fire Island, New York. Really challenging project for that kind of nature of work. They're usually not quite so difficult with half of the logistic requirements relative to being on an island to get the work done. But met Mark. He came to us to be one of our sector managers up there working and providing leadership to our employees in the field. And I was trying to think of a way to quantify or qualify Mark's leadership, and he in the Army, we used to have this thing called the 4 C's to describe some of the leadership. There's always acronyms in the Army and lists, so to speak, but the 4 C's struck me as a way to describe Mark's leadership, which are those 4 C's are courage, commitment, candor, and competence. And there's not one more important than the other. They all kind of go together, and it's kind of a well-rounded example of a person's ability to lead people. This is a very interesting project in that we basically put an ad in the newspaper and on the internet and hired people locally who just basically walked in off the street, most of them unemployed, just looking to do something for themselves and to put themselves in a better position. So this was not a team that was put together from an A list from somewhere or a B list. This was just a group of people that came together to work, who didn't know each other, had to take ferries and get around and early in the morning, and didn't even know where Fire Island was in some cases. So kind of a challenging environment to be put into for the leaders out there, one of which was Mark. And so courage is what we're talking about here when we say courage is not just the courage under fire or something like that, but the courage to get up in front of your men and lead them and do what they're doing, and to be confident about it, and to show them that you have the personal courage to do the work and to get your hands dirty and get in the middle of it and lead by example. And Mark demonstrates that very well. Commitment. Obviously, he came from home and he stayed through the end. He was ready to do more. Very committed to the mission. He just immersed himself into it. He felt good about it. He took ownership of it. He wanted to get it done, and he shared in the successes that we had, and he shared in those things that weren't successful, and it became part of him. Candor is the ability of a leader to tell people above him, what's going well and what's not going well when asked, and not to complain, but to provide constructive, confident criticism and or suggestions on the way to get things done better. Mark did that well. He was always very respectful and polite, and he had some great ideas for us, some of which we're still thinking about doing, by the way. And a lot of times people will tell you what you want to hear as opposed to telling you what you need to hear. So it's very refreshing, and it's also refreshing when somebody tells you in a manner where you can be receptive of it. Sometimes even when someone's telling you something and you kind of know you need to hear it, you really don't want to hear it because of the way it's being transmitted. And the last one is competence. And Mark does a lot of things, and he does them really well, I think, probably just from knowing him this time that I've known him. But for what we were doing there and the requirements of the mission and the unique requirements of the mission, where we typically will use dump trucks and loaders to get the debris out. We were using wheelbarrows in our hands in some cases, or laundry tubs and shovels, because of the narrow confines of the area where we were working and the nature of the walkways and things like that. So Mark was able to apply problem-solving skills and to take a step back and look at the big picture and figure out what we needed to do in order to be successful. So to sum all that up, once again, I think Mark's a great example of a leader with the 4 C's, being courage, commitment, candor, and competency. And he's a really good guy too. He's very he's an optimistic guy. The glass is always half full with him, and he's always smiling. It doesn't matter if he's been out in the rain and the snow on Fire Island, and people are complaining. And he just rode a ferry. He's been out for 18 hours. He comes in with a smile on his face, and he knows he's got another 2 hours of paperwork to do. So very refreshing, and I would highly endorse him for. He's the kind of guy that, like I said, he can get his hands dirty if he needs to, and he can see the big picture. He can get in there, and he can figure out what the problem is, and then I'm sure he can sit down with a group of people and be the whole team that he'd be working with, and come up with a way to solve the problem, and compromise if he needs to, but always with an eye on solving the problems that people have out there, and getting the thing done. So anyway, that's how I would describe your leadership, Mark.
Well, the project that he was talking about was a tough one. Logistically, it was something else. We're used, like he was saying, we're used to full-size roads. We've been through it: Hurricane Ivan, Hurricane Dennis, Harleen, Cindy, Brett, everything else that we've seen down here, Aaron, Opal, and Frederick. It goes all the way back. But we're used to coming in with big old loaders, picking up debris, loading in big trucks. Everything we just did had to go out by barge, had to go out in tight little confined spaces. Literally the roads were like golf cart paths through the town. So logistically, it was a nightmare. And to hear that coming from a 30-some-odd-year colonel in the Army, to say this was logistically one of the most difficult missions he's ever been on, I can wholeheartedly agree with that statement. We got it done. And we actually were the very first contract since Hurricane Sandy to finish on time. So that was pretty strong. And to hear FEMA and the Corps applaud us on in that was very uplifting. So we'll get it done. Put a project in front of us, and like you said, we'll solve it, and we'll move forward together to make whatever we're doing a better thing.
This message is paid for and approved by Mark Taylor, a Republican for House of Representatives, District 2.